What's going on, guys? Welcome back into the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. We're back, and this is obviously the Tuesday live stream for you guys talking about waiver wire additions and subtractions and all that fun stuff. But we are without one Bobby Sylvester today. He unfortunately suffered a tear in his Achilles tendon, so I think he's undergoing surgery like right this moment. So if you guys want to send him your best wishes on Twitter at Bobby Fantasy Pro, let him know that we hope his surgery goes well and that he's back for our next live stream that we have, and that he's not all drugged up, after the surgery. So, Bobby, we'll welcome you back then, but hope you get better soon, buddy. So we're going to talk about waiver wires today. I'm going to take a couple questions from you guys as well towards the end, but I'm going to answer a lot of those questions that you guys probably have going through this. So let's just start right at the top. We're going to start a quarterback. We're getting to the point where we have to start looking at streaming options on the waiver wire. Some people might have Cam Newton, they might have Alex Smith, who are on buys this week, and you might be searching for a quarterback. Fortunately for you, there's some excellent options this week. The first one being Andy Dalton. He's going to be going into Atlanta, who, by the way, you guys knew that they were without Keanu Neal, the one safety. They were without Deion Jones, their star linebacker, and now they lost Ricardo Allen, their other starting safety. So that team is just in disarray. They have been struggling ever since they lost those two players. So I think it's now 6 or 7 touchdowns over the last 2 weeks. Andy Dalton is a fantastic ad. The concern here is whether or not AJ Green is 100% and whether or not he plays. Andy Dalton has played better on the road throughout his career, so he's an excellent ad. Another one is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield making his first career start. Now, this one, he is traveling across the country. He's going to Oakland, which is a hostile environment. But, I mean, it's Oakland, though, right? I'm in the middle of writing this game up right now. And, yeah, the Oakland defense, I mean, last week, Ryan Tannehill, 289 yards, 3 touchdowns against them. They had some miscommunications on the defense. That defense altogether, they have 5 new players on their front 7, so there's going to be some miscommunications. The secondary has a bunch of new pieces to it as well. So there's just this is a team learning a new coaching staff. They're learning each other. They don't know how to communicate very well. Mayfield is precise. We saw that on Thursday night. That's the quarterback I think I expected him to be. Those windows that he's used to throwing into are going to get tighter in the NFL, and they're going to close a lot faster. So he's going to have some ups and downs, but I don't think the Raiders are one of those teams where I'd have to worry about. One last player before we move down to running backs. I do want to mention to you guys Case Keenum against Kansas City. I think he's a fine streaming play this week. But let's talk about some running backs. So Buck Allen, in terms of snap counts, he's pretty much right in line with Alex Collins. These two are splitting the workload. It seems like Kenneth Dixon's probably going to miss another week. So these two running backs are going to continue to kind of flip-flop production, and you kind of have to read into game script and which one's going to be which, right? Fortunately, this week they're going against Pittsburgh, and this game will be taking place in Pittsburgh on primetime TV. So you know that the Steelers are going to put up points at home. They do. It doesn't even matter who the defense is. They're always going to put up points there. I want to say they've averaged over 7 points per game more at home over the last 3 years. So that's going to happen. And if you look at the game last year where the Ravens went into Pittsburgh, both Alex Collins and Buck Allen finished his top 20 PPR options. I do expect Buck Allen to be very useful in this game. I think I'll probably rank him as like an RB3 flex type play, but I think he has upside for more. And I think he comes with a high floor because he's obviously the preferred one in the passing game. So Buck Allen, if you guys need a running back to fill in this week, I think he's a guy that could do that. Moving on to Nyheim Hines. The running back waiver wire this week is not great. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it is. I don't think you need to spend a whole lot of money on these options. Buck Allen's worth maybe, $5 to $8, depending on how much money you have, knowing how your league spends. I don't think he's worth the number one white waiver priority, if that's, a question that you had. But Nyheim Hines, he has been used more than people think. He is turning into the Darren Sproles of this offense because Frank Reich came from the Doug Peterson offensive coaching tree, and you kind of saw them put together this weird combination of running backs, and we had to pay attention to the snap counts to see who was going to be the Sproles, and it's obviously Nyheim Hines. He, after a terrible preseason, he's led this team in snaps out of the backfield. He actually played 43 snaps this past week, whereas Jordan Wilkins, I think he capped at 17, if I'm not mistaken. So it's clearly a role for him. And I think you're going to be able to see him start being used a little bit more. Andrew Luck needs to get the ball out of his hands relatively quick. They're down to their 3rd string right tackle. They've been missing their left tackle for the first 3 weeks. The interior of the offensive line, there's 2 new pieces there. So there's a lot going on. They just need to check the ball down. And that's why you're seeing Andrew Luck have a career low in terms of his average depth of target. So Nyheim Hines is someone to stash in PPR leagues, and I think you can get some use out of him even this week. Going down to Chris Ivory, last week, Bobby and I had talked about why Chris Ivory wasn't a good addition. And I still stand by that. I know he had a solid game against Minnesota, but it was impossible to predict that Minnesota would turn the ball, their offense would turn over the ball in Buffalo territory and continually put their defense in a bad spot. Everson Griffin being out, obviously he's going to be out going forward. There were a lot of things in that game that just led to Chris Ivory having a decent game. And I think the receiving totals are never going to be there. It seems like LaShawn McCoy is going to try and make it back this week. Even if he does, I'm not buying into this rushing attack. Green Bay has been pretty good against the run over the first 3 weeks, and they've had some tough competition. Now, Adrian Peterson got in for 2 touchdowns last week. I mean, one of the touchdowns shouldn't have really counted. I just think that they overlooked Adrian Peterson in that game. I don't think Chris Ivory is on my radar. But again, if you need someone who's going to get maybe 10 to 12 carries and just someone to be a body in your lineup, you can do that if McCoy's out. But I'm not expecting big results. Wendell Smallwood had a great game. There's nothing I can take away from that. The Eagles coaching staff, they've kept him on the roster for a reason. A lot of people think that they don't like Wendell Smallwood, but this is Doug Peterson. It doesn't even matter who it is. Whatever running backs are on the roster and who are active on game day, they're going to get some snaps. And we saw it again and again and again. But yet people just think it's going to keep changing, that Corey Clement is so talented, they're going to give him the lion's share of work. That's just not how it works with Doug Peterson. We have heard from Peterson himself say that he expects Jay Ajayi and Darren Sproles to return to game action this week. We'll obviously pay attention to those practice reports. So Wendell Smallwood, leave him on the waiver wire. Nothing to see there. This is where the meat is for the waiver wire here. We're going into the wide receivers now. Mike Williams, I have him as my wide receiver 38 for the rest of the season. And that apparently some people have him even higher than that. And I'm waiting for him to overtake Tyrell Williams as the clear-cut number 2, because they're playing close to the same number of snaps, but Tyrell is still technically the number 2 receiver. You also have to remember that the Chargers have been throwing the ball a lot over the first 3 weeks because their defense without Joey Bosa just hasn't been the same. So the pass attempts have been up for Phillip Rivers, but the reason I like Mike Williams so much, and the reason that I think that he's almost like an every week start, he got it done last week in a tough matchup against the Rams. Look, I know Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib got hurt in that game. The first touchdown legitimately was right over Marcus Peters. Like, it was a grown man touchdown that Mike Williams scored over Marcus Peters, and Peters was on the sideline just furious about it. There was nothing he could have done. Mike Williams is the bigger, more physical player, and he's turning into the favorite red zone target for Phillip Rivers, and we know that means fantasy points going forward. So Mike Williams, I talked on the podcast saying that I'd be willing to spend 20 to 25% of my budget to get him, and I still stand by that. I believe Mike Williams is a fantastic addition to your fantasy team. He should have been on it already. If you guys have been listening to us, we like Mike Williams this preseason. I'm not bragging because I've made some bad calls, but that's one where I said you should not be shocked if he finishes the year with double-digit touchdowns. Moving on to Calvin Ridley. Some people will be shocked to see me have Calvin Ridley below Mike Williams in my rest of season rankings, but I do. Again, he was another person this offseason where I talked up Calvin Ridley as my favorite receiver coming out of the draft. He was the most pro-ready wide receiver, and we're seeing that, right? Do I think that Matt Ryan is going to continue to support, Julio Jones, a top 5 fantasy wide receiver, and then Calvin Ridley as another top 30 receiver? It's possible. I'm not going to say that it's not, but we have to remember that Calvin Ridley had 7 targets in the first 2 games. So it's not like he was seeing a bunch of work and he wasn't getting it done. Did he earn that trust in week 3? It's still yet to be seen. I don't want to buy basically on one massive performance. In fact, I'd be open to selling Calvin Ridley if someone's willing to pay a king's ransom for him, because Julio Jones is going to start to see the benefits of Calvin Ridley on the field, right? We all talked about, okay, Calvin Ridley is going to benefit from Julio Jones seeing shadow coverage from the top cornerback and this and that. Well, he did. He got it. The Saints finally realized as the game went on, they actually moved Marshawn Lattimore over to his side of the field and left Julio Jones with Ken Crawley. Julio Jones proceeded to catch a 55-yard pass. So, Julio Jones is still the number 1 there. Calvin Ridley can be a fantasy relevant wide receiver, but I have him more in that wide receiver 4 territory where he's not going to produce every week, but he's a guy that you could stick in your lineup in some good matchups, knowing that the Falcons defense is struggling and that they've lost 3 of their key players. I expect Matt Ryan to have more pass attempts, but Devonta Freeman is coming back soon, which will, again, lighten the load a little bit for those receivers. Moving down to Geronimo Allison. Again, guys, the 3 wide receivers that we're talking about right now, they've all been in an article that I release every weekend. Every weekend I go through and I write it's weekend waiver wire stashes, and it's players that are currently on the waiver wire at the end of the week where you can just go and snag them before Sunday and kind of just stash them on your bench. Allison, I have no idea why this guy is still under 40% owned. He's currently on pace for 69 receptions, 1,100 and something yards, and 11 touchdowns. Yet he's available in like 60% of leagues. I understand a lot of you guys play in leagues that are more advanced than that, and he's definitely owned. You guys probably own him already, but if he's out there for whatever reason, he is the number 2 option for Aaron Rodgers right now. Randall Cobb's not playing very well. So I like Allison an awful lot. And knowing that he's been able to produce the numbers he has with a dinged up Aaron Rodgers, it just gives me hope for the future. So Allison must be owned. Chris Godwin. I mean, wow, right? It's hard not to like Chris Godwin after what you just saw on Monday night. He scored the touchdown for the 3rd straight game, but at the same time, he's also number 4 on the team in snaps. Like they had Mike Evans, Adam Humphries, and Deshaun Jackson playing more snaps than him last week. Again, guys, we're not going to continue to expect Ryan Fitzmagic or Fitzpatrick, whatever you want to call him nowadays. We're not going to expect him to put up 3-4 touchdowns every single week. So the Chris Godwin hype, I love the player. The situation is not great. Where he's playing, I think he played 37 snaps last night. That's not going to get it done in most instances. So take it down a notch with Chris Godwin. If you're able to sell high on him, understand that there's a risk, because the risk is that they finally realize what they have in Chris Godwin and they start playing him over Deshaun Jackson. They start playing him over Adam Humphries. But right now it's somewhat of a timeshare. So I have him down under Geronimo Allison just because I'm worried about the snap counts. And if the touchdowns weren't there, he's not producing like a high yardage standpoint. So understand that with Godwin, but he absolutely should be owned. Antonio Callaway is a interesting one. I've actually, like I said, I just started working on this game, researching it for the week. And Antonio Callaway, he's a guy that can get open in his routes, but he's not taking advantage of getting open, if that makes sense. Last week, he beat Morris Claiborne multiple times, and he just hasn't been able to reel them in. Baker Mayfield is going to make life on him a lot easier because he's going to put the ball where it needs to go. But you saw, even last Thursday night, if you watched that game, Baker Mayfield dropped a dime right over Morris Claiborne's head. Claiborne didn't even know where the ball was. Hit the ball in both hands for Callaway. He dropped it. I know a lot of people are expecting big things out of him, but I still think that he's the number 3 option in that passing game behind Jarvis Landry and David Njoku, who, by the way, if David Njoku's available on your waiver wire, like go and get him now. I don't think I need to mention that, but I actually noticed that he was available in like one of my leagues, and I was like, why? I actually think he's a top 8 tight end going forward. Baker Mayfield loved his tight end in college, and I think he's going to love Njoku, especially in the red zone. So go out there and get him if you can get him for cheap. But Antonio Callaway, a fine player, should be added, but he's going to be inconsistent. He's not inside my top 45 wide receivers for the rest of the year, so I don't think you need to spend buku bucks to get him or anything like that. Tyler Boyd, I mean, with the struggles that we've been witnessing John Ross have, in terms of confidence, in terms of, being on the same page as Andy Dalton, I went back and I watched some of John Ross this year. There's times where it's not his fault. There's times where it's really not, that he's running a route and he gets open. Andy Dalton just, he throws it in the wrong direction. Against Carolina, it was evident a couple times. However, John Ross is also running some lazy routes at times. Like there's comeback routes where he just turns around. He doesn't come back towards the football, and that will kill him. Andy Dalton will stop trusting him. Basically, he'll turn into a deep threat only, and that's not something you want to do. So whenever Andy Dalton gets in trouble now, he's checking down to Tyler Boyd. And Tyler Boyd now has the most yards on the Bengals team. Yes, he has more yardage than A.J. Green. So we have to pay attention to that. Boyd is benefiting from A.J. Green and John Ross stretching the field a little bit. Obviously, they have the tight ends there. I don't think Boyd's going to be an every week wide receiver 3 like some people do. However, he is definitely worth an add, and he's someone with bye weeks coming up that can definitely fill like a wide receiver 3 or a flex spot. Just don't expect the production that he's put up to this point. Ryan Grant is the next one. The reason I kind of like the addition of Ryan Grant, and some people are going to dismiss it because he hasn't been, he hasn't kind of balled out or anything like that. He hasn't had a mega game, and they're waiting for that. But here's the thing. If you wait for that, then you're going to be doing the same thing you did with Calvin Ridley. You're going to be trying to bid against everybody on the waiver wire. Why not add Grant and see if he can have that game? This week they're playing against Houston. They're going to be at home. Houston gets a pass rush. They need to get the ball out quick. Ryan Grant has been somewhat of the possession receiver role, sharing that with T.Y. Hilton. Both of their average depth of targets are pretty low, especially if Jack Doyle is out this week. I think Ryan Grant is going to have to be more utilized in the offense. I like him as an ad, guys. Knowing Andrew Luck's skill set right now, knowing what Ryan Grant does well in the role he's playing, I think he's going to provide a solid floor in PPR formats. So add Ryan Grant now if you have a bench spot, and don't expect the world, but at the same time, add him before it's like the cool thing to do. All right. We're going to go to Ted Ginn now. Ted Ginn is not someone that I feel the need to add. The reason I say that is because Ted Ginn is more of a touchdown or bust type guy. And knowing that we have Cameron Meredith coming back to the Saints offense, he was active last week. He only caught one ball, but it was for a touchdown. They've talked about getting Traquan Smith more involved. This is a Saints team that when they were in the NFL draft, they basically told you, we want to win now. And trading up for Marcus Davenport, going to snag Traquan Smith in the third round. I believe that they want to use Traquan Smith. And I think that Ted Ginn, dealing with some knee issues that he's dealt with, I think he's slowly but surely going to be a little phased out. He's going to have games where it's like, yo, there he is. It's kind of like that Devery Henderson thing, where it's like he's going to have a week every like 3 or 4 weeks, he's going to have a game. And you're going to be like, oh, why didn't I pick this week to start him? He's more of a DFS play than he is a season-long play. So I'm not really into adding Ted Ginn, but for bye weeks, I suppose you could try it. Moving on to tight end, there's only one tight end I really felt the need to talk about that's on the majority of waiver wires, and that's Dallas Goedert. After Goddard played, he ran just 15 pass routes in the first 2 weeks. He ran 27 pass routes in the game last week with Carson Wentz. Knowing that they don't have Mike Wallace anymore, knowing that Mac Hollins is on injured reserve, knowing that Alshon Jeffrey has still not been cleared for contact, knowing that Jordan Matthews is not a good perimeter wide receiver, so I have no idea why they signed him back when they're playing Aguilar in the slot still, they're going to use Dallas Goedert. And he ran 27 pass routes this past week. So that's bad. And that's massive for him. Zach Ertz ran 42. So obviously Ertz is still the guy, but Goddard has shown the ability to block. He's shown the ability to catch the ball in the red zone. I don't think this is going away, guys. I think he's actually a legitimate streaming option. And I would think about it this week against the Tennessee Titans. The Titans, what'll happen is you're going to go and look at the Titans against tight ends, and you're going to see, oh my God, they're the best in the NFL. I'm going to give you guys a preview of the primer that I've been writing, actually. So here are the last 8 tight ends that the Titans have played. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, Ryan Griffin, AJ Derby, Mercedes Lewis, Tyler Higbee, Garrett Selleck, Jermaine Gresham, and Steven Anderson. They haven't played like a living tight end in like almost a year. So I definitely like Goddard this week. I think you could actually stream him. I think they're starting to involve him more in the offense, and there's no reason he shouldn't be owned. So go out there and grab him with the lack of tight end options we have on the waiver wire. All right, guys, I tried to make it through quick so I could take some more questions today, and we have like 10 minutes to spare. So I'm going to take some of your questions. So go ahead and shoot them in there. I am not going to pick favorites or anything like that. I'm just going to randomly see one in there. I'm just going to pop it out and I'm going to answer it. So let's see, Drop Blunt and Wilkins, they are in a 3-way timeshare. I mean, yeah, I don't know why LeGarrette Blunt should have been owned before. I never liked Blunt. I don't like him now. Kerryon Johnson's the guy going forward. Blunt will still have a role because that's Matt Patricia's boy, but he has no value to me. Wilkins, once Mac returns, he's going to be in that 3-way timeshare, and he's just such a boring player. Like we've seen enough of Jordan Wilkins right now for me to say, okay, he's not the guy. And the offensive line is not performing the way that I think they need them to in order for him to do work on first and second down. So yeah, Nyheim Hines, as I mentioned, he has that passing down role. So I think it's okay to drop both of those guys if you want to. Is there any way Green Bay doesn't make Jones the workhorse? Guys, clearly better than Williams and Ty. Yeah, I actually, this week, I believe I'm going to rank Aaron Jones ahead of Jamal Williams. And the reason I'm going to do that, there is risk. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Aaron Jones is definitely the guy and the guy that you need to have in lineups, because Jamal Williams is a better pass protector. This is like hands down. There's no question about it. I think Aaron Jones is the better runner. Absolutely. He's more athletic. He looks like he's more spry on the field. He looks like he could be somewhat of a difference maker, whereas Jamal Williams has looked like a guy just running into a pile over and over and over again. Here's the issue, though. Aaron Rodgers is less than 100%. His right tackle, Brian Bulaga, might be out a couple weeks with a back injury. His right guard is dealing with an injury. So he might be missing his entire right side of the offensive line of starters, which would make pass protection a big thing. That's where I'm worried about it. They should be able to run the ball against Buffalo. I think this is the week where they try and get their run game going, because their run game has done nothing to take any pressure off Aaron Rodgers. So I think Aaron Jones is startable this week, but there is risk with him. Should I trade DJ Moore or trade him? And will he be a fantasy wide receiver 2 next year? I hated the landing spot for DJ Moore. I'll say it. I said it before. I'll say it again. When you go to the Panthers, you're going to play with Cam Newton, right? It's obviously a run first team. They're not going to be throwing the ball 40 times a game. Every now and then that'll happen, but they're not playing DJ Moore right now. They're like legitimately playing him behind guys like Jarius Wright and Torrey Smith. It tells me he's not where he needs to be. I would have loved to have seen him play the slot somewhere, but Cam Newton's just a very inaccurate quarterback. DJ Moore is he's not like a big guy. I wanted to see him. He reminded me of Julian Edelman during the draft process. I think he can be a player somewhere for sure. I wouldn't drop him or anything like that, but if you can get, good return for him, I told people to draft Calvin Ridley over DJ Moore. So, I don't own any DJ Moore, so I don't have to worry about it. But yeah, I would be open to trading him for sure, just depending on what you can get. Don't sell too low. What about Chris Carson? Again, guys, I don't want to overreact to one game. 32 carries is an awful lot. I've been saying all along that I think that Pete Carroll likes Chris Carson better. I feel like he was being pressured by the front office to play Rashad Penny, and rightfully so. I don't want to say rightfully so because it was stupid of them to draft Rashad Penny, but they did, and someone's going to get fired for that. Like that, someone has to get fired for drafting a running back when you already had one on the roster who was arguably more talented. Chris Carson, I don't fully trust him. That was the first running back touchdown that the Seahawks have scored since like week 6 of last year. Like in the last 19 games for the Seahawks, that was just the second rushing touchdown. So I'm not going to all of a sudden go like, oh my God, Chris Carson's amazing. I'm not there. I do believe he should be owned though. That's for sure. I have Wilkins on a lot of my teams. Feels bad, man. Yeah, it does. Is Marquise Goodwin droppable? I don't want to say he's droppable. He did fall outside my top 40 wide receivers for the remainder of the season. So I'm not like crazy. I'm not sold on him with CJ Beathard as the quarterback. If you go back and look at Beathard last year in terms of his target share, George Kittle should probably be the one who doesn't suffer like the most, but Marquise Goodwin, him with the accuracy of Garoppolo, especially down the field, is going to hurt. So I would trade him. I wouldn't drop him because I don't think that there's like players in the waiver wire who should be owned over him. If Mike Williams is out there, yeah, but yeah, I wouldn't drop him just yet. I'd wait on Carson, see how he does next week. All right, so let's see, Flacco or Manning. PPR. I don't think the PPR matters for this one. I will go with Joe Flacco this week. Joe Flacco going against that Pittsburgh defense. Again, this is going to be a higher scoring game. It always is in Pittsburgh, and the game's on primetime. Flacco has shown the ability to play well in primetime the majority of the time. So I would go with Flacco here. Manning had a good week last week. They had a great game plan, getting the ball out quick. He averaged the lowest amount of time with the ball in his hands before throwing in week 3. So it just told me, okay, the Giants, okay, Pat Shurmur, like, way to go. Like, you guys deserve an applause here because you guys game plan correctly and you attack that defense the way they should have been. So, but it's still 1 week with Manning. He's a very streaky quarterback. I want to see it for multiple weeks before I trust him. Drop Sony for carry-on. I don't think you should drop Sony Michel, but I also don't think Kerryon Johnson should not be owned either. I have them both in the same territory. They're both in somewhat of timeshares. I think that the Patriots offense will get back on track. I think Julian Edelman coming back after this week is going to be a major addition to their offense. I also believe that Josh Gordon coming to the offense is going to help spread things out a little bit. The offensive line in New England has been terrible. There's really no way around that. And the thing is, when they don't have any threats, to take any attention on the perimeter, it's never going to work. They need Edelman back in this offense. They need to get Josh Gordon out there to stretch the field, to pull defenders out, and better things will happen. I think this offense will get back on track. It's just waiting for all those pieces. Michel has higher upside because he plays in a better offense. Like, I'm still calling the Patriots a better offense than the Lions. I'm still going to do that. So I still probably would rather own Sony, but Kerryon should absolutely be owned. So pick him up somehow, some way. Vance McDonald worth picking up? I think so. I definitely think he's worth picking up because, like, people have asked me, Mike, do I drop Trey Burton? No, you don't drop Trey Burton. What are you guys even talking about? Like, have you stopped for a second and looked at the landscape of the tight end position right now? If you have a tight end who's seeing 5 targets every single game, 5 or more, and has upside, like, Trey Burton is the number 16 tight end right now, and his quarterback has played like crap. So knowing that's like his floor, Anthony Miller is now likely to miss time. He's got a separated shoulder. Like, none of this makes sense to me. Don't drop Trey Burton. Don't do that. And I see another question here. Drop Amari Cooper. Stop it. Just stop it. I'm not even going to answer it. All right, I'm holding Bears next week. Yeah, they're playing the Bucs this week. You know, this is a week where their team, I mean, they need an offensive showcase. They need to get their confidence back. And, you know, against the Bucs, it's very possible. Their best cornerback is Brent Grimes, and he plays perimeter only, but he's 5'10", 185 pounds. Allen Robinson plays a lot of slot, so he's going to see MJ Stewart, their rookie cornerback, quite a bit. This could be a confidence builder for the Bears offense. So I definitely wouldn't drop any Bears players right now. Is Crowder droppable for Ridley/Boyd? Why would you drop Crowder after he had this is the best game of the season? Like, it was a very, very low volume game. I think Alex Smith threw the ball like 22 times. I don't know why. And Crowder saw 4 of those targets, caught all 4 for I think 39 yards and a touchdown. No, I'm not dropping Crowder. Ridley and Boyd, I mean, should they be owned? Yeah, but I wouldn't drop Crowder for them. No, I think Ridley is close, but I think he's going to be more volatile than Jamison Crowder going forward, because Crowder is he's gotten healthier. He started the year with a groin injury. So when you see the slow start, don't be too worried about it. Holy crap, the RB and tight end positions are crap this year. That's how I feel, Martin. Like, that's the thing, is when people tell me that they're talking about dropping someone like Trey Burton, I'm like, you guys are mad. Like, you guys have lost your friggin' marbles, because like, looking at the tight ends, there might be like 6 that you could confidently say, I'm starting this guy every single week. And I don't even know if it's 6, to be honest with you. I'm just like throwing a number out, but I know that when I'm doing my rankings, I'm like, oh my God, is this guy really a tight end 1? But yes, Jared Cook has been a tight end 1 in my rankings. It just tells you where we're at. Is Flacco elite? No. Doyle droppable? No. No one is even talking about Devante Parker. Is he even worth rostering? Yes, he absolutely is worth rostering. I was waiting. I didn't want to play him this week. I know they had a good matchup, and Kenny Stills got the pride here, but the reason that I was waiting is because I wanted to see the snap counts. I wanted to see if Albert Wilson or Jakeem Grant or any of these guys like earn more snaps than Parker. Nope. Parker was number 2 in snaps, just behind Stills. Albert Wilson played just 8 snaps in that game, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was 10 by Jakeem Grant. So those 2 players are very much just role players right now. Devante Parker is the only one on that team who like would like possibly get 8+ targets in a game. Like Kenny Stills, I think he's maxed out at 5 so far. So Kenny Stills has his role, and that's fine. He's going to be like an up and down player. But Parker, I'm actually still buying. I have him on a lot of my benches, and I still think that he's absolutely worth rostering. Mike, can you guys do a trade Q&A live stream? I mean, you could ask those questions here. I also take those questions on Sunday morning. If you guys miss out on Sunday morning, that's where we go through and I talk to you guys about anything that's on your mind. I talk about the injuries that have taken place. I talk about sit start, talk about DFS. I talk about everything. But I do want to make sure you guys know about my playbook. So my playbook is like what we offer on the Fantasy Pros website, where it's amazing for guys like myself. So I have 17 leagues. Like that's how many leagues I play in. A lot of people ask me that question. It's too many. I don't want to play in that many anymore. I really don't. I'm going to cut out leagues next year, but my playbook allows me to keep things kind of in check. My playbook. So when I'm busy on a Sunday morning, and if you guys are busy too, because I know everybody has lives, if you set it up on there with my playbook, it actually swaps out players who are announced inactive. You don't even have to worry about doing it. What we do is we take the player who's the highest in our projections, which is pulled from the expert consensus rankings, and it automatically plugs that player off your bench into your starting lineup for the inactive player. It helps out someone like me so much, who's like incredibly busy on Sunday mornings, like doing the live chat that I do, and like finishing my rankings and updating articles and things like that, that sometimes my lineups they kind of fall back by the wayside. So if you guys need some help like that, my playbook is awesome. We also have the waiver wire assistant there, where it'll basically give you advice on your team, letting you know who you should be picking up, who's on your waiver wire, because it tracks all that stuff. I'll take one more question, and then I got to get out of here. I got to keep writing the primer, guys. Drop the Bears defense next week or hold shallow benches. I mean, I don't know why you would drop the Bears defense when they're about to play Tampa Bay. Like, did you guys see Tampa Bay's offensive line against the Steelers last night? Don't drop the Bears. Don't do that. Guys, this was fun. But by the way, if you guys needed a streaming defense this week, the Packers are available in a lot of leagues. I'd play them against the Bills all day. I also think the Seattle Seahawks defense is available in, I think, 70 or 75% of leagues or something like that. I think they're a good play as well. But this was fun, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Again, Bobby should be back with me next week because an Achilles doesn't affect his ability to talk, but being in surgery, unfortunately, does. So again, make sure you guys wish Bobby well in his recovery. Hopefully everything went well with his surgery. But we're going to be back next week with another Waiver Wire live stream. But Bobby will be back on Thursday for the start sit live stream. Hope you guys can join him then. But until then, lights out.